Lighthouse Point project phases 1 and 1A, including the residential, retail, parking garage, and roof deck, received your final approval in September of 2015. The project is currently in construction and scheduled to be completed first quarter of 2018. We're here today seeking your preliminary approval for phase 2, the hotel and historic buildings. The proposal includes the new hotel, the Western New York Staten Island, which includes the repurposing of historic Building 8, the restoration of historic buildings 5, 6, and 7, and 5 underground walls that are on the historic register, and also a response to conditions of approval for 1A, which is the roof deck. Sean Basler from Perkins Eastman will be making the presentation. Thank you.
Hi, thank you for having us today. So as Gail said, we're going to present phase 2 of Lighthouse Point, which is the hotel and the restoration of the historic buildings. This is a really exciting project for us. I mean, it sort of completes the master plan that was begun in phase 1, but also it really is an important part of the fabric of redeveloping the waterfront of Staten Island and St. George. If everybody's familiar with sort of the waterfront of St. George, this is the ferry terminal where the ferries come in, the baseball field, and then the New York Wheel over here. Our site sits down in this portion of the waterfront, but together it really sort of completes the sort of whole promenade, which is going to rejuvenate the waterfront of Staten Island. This is the entire site here. It's a very interesting site. It's right off of Bay Street. Bay Street comes along here with the entrance to the ferry terminal and the parking. What's interesting about the site is, and challenging as well as interesting, is it has a big slope to it. It's about 30 feet, or more higher in the back than it is on the promenade. And what's quite interesting about it is along the waterfront here is this promenade, which right now is just kind of let's say a street to access the Lighthouse Museum, which sits down here, and then some maintenance buildings, which are for the Staten Island ferry. But the idea is, from the beginning, is that this street can become a really interesting promenade, which can be full of life and activity and things like that. So what phase 2 does is it really starts to pull all of this together. These are some pictures from around the site, just to give you a little bit of context. The ferry terminal, kind of looking up at the site towards from the water. This is an adjacent property. This is the site here. This is a view from the promenade up onto the site, looking from here. And then along the promenade, the sort of showing the character of some of the historic buildings here, this is a view from the lower promenade, sort of looking back towards where the hotel would sit. This is Building 8, which is one of the buildings which will be part of the hotel. And then this is a view sort of from down here, looking up the hillside, which, as we get into the presentation, is a very important view because it sort of is where the new hotel sort of gets nestled between the historic buildings. This is sort of at the same view, but out from the pier a little bit. There's a pier which goes out here from the parking lot in front of the Lighthouse Museum out into the water, and this sort of looks up. So our new hotel, the new construction actually sort of sets between these buildings up on the hill, which is quite interesting. And then this is Building 8. This building here, which is number 10, is not part of this project, but still, addressing the character of that building and how it ties into the promenade is very important. Turning around, looking out from sort of the same place, is the pier looking out towards the water. And there's sort of this interesting relationship between these two buildings here and this pier. It actually kind of lines up perfectly, which is pretty neat. And we played up a little bit on that with how we designed the building. This is an aerial. The neighbors were kind enough to let our team up on the building and take some pictures down to the site. So this is sort of looking down into the site Phase 1 is under construction right now, which is the residential, and some retail, which is sort of on the higher portion of the site. And then looking down towards the pier and the promenade. So as you can see, there's a lot of character there and a lot of things to sort of play with. And so what we've tried to do is, our goal has been to sort of look at what was done in the master plan, which was presented to the commission here, and play off of that and see where we can enhance it and see where we could really sort of focus on sort of the public spaces. One, to create sort of an interesting sort of character to the historic fabric, which is on the promenade. And then what we did with the building, the new building, sort of does not sort of compete with the existing buildings, the historic buildings, but really sort of becomes something that sits above it and behind it and lets the sort of the base sort of express itself. This is an axon of what Phase 1 is, which is currently under construction. It's the residential building, which has a little bit of retail at the base, and then the parking structure, which is sort of built into the hillside and will be all concealed. What we're focusing on today is Phase 2, which is what we're calling the plaza, the arrival plaza, which is on top of the parking garage. There was one comment, I think, in some of the previous reviews about trying to extend a small portion of the plaza to get a little bit more landscape in it, to get a little bit better sort of arrival, and so we've done that. And then the other parts to what Phase 2 includes is a new hotel tower, which will be a Westin Hotel, which is an upscale luxury lifestyle brand of Westin, which is now Starwood Marriott. The renovation and restoration of Building 8, which is very important not only for the promenade, but also for sort of the character and operation of the hotel. This will be some of the F&B, and will tie in sort of very discreetly in the podium, connecting back to the hotel. And then the restoration of the existing buildings here, buildings 5 and 6, which would also be some sort of retail and restaurant. Looking at a site plan, this is Phase 1, which is already under construction. This little triangle here is a piece that we've kind of added and enhanced to a little bit more landscape onto the arrival. But basically, you enter off of Bay Street, and you have the arrival plaza here, which is the arrival for the hotel and for the restaurants, and it's all valet parking then, which would go down to a parking ramp right here, which is sort of nicely concealed at the entrance. The Building 8 has a bit more of a connection to the hotel, and I'll get into that a little bit more about how we addressed it. Buildings 5 and 6 really kind of remain these standalone buildings, which we just restore in kind. There are a series of walkways and pathways within the landscape, which I think you've seen before, which would sort of take you from the upper plaza to the lower promenade. Phase 2 is the hotel and the buildings on the promenade. So the slight modification to the plaza has been the extension of it to give a little bit more landscape to the arrival, and also giving us a little bit more room to do something in the middle of that arrival plaza. So there would be some landscape here and something that is important for the whole sort of hotel arrival experience. Throughout this whole process, we've been working with SHPO to sort of get their comments, and particularly with Building 8, Buildings 5 and 6, because we're just restoring them in kind, are not really, we're not really touching anything on them on the exterior. But Building 8 is a bit of a challenge, because within the master plan, the parking garage kind of comes right up to it, and then the podium of the hotel works up to the back side of Building 8. And there were a couple things. The top floor, the arrival of our hotel is actually at the top floor of Building 8, which sort of represents a unique challenge. It means that the 4 stories of Building 8, we don't want to lose that. We don't want to lose that sort of arrival experience just because you're up high. So working with SHPO, what we've done is created a series of sunken courtyards to expose as much of Building 8 facade as we can, which was pretty cool because it gave us a really sort of nice character and a blend of the historic architecture with the new architecture at the entrance. But it gave us a sort of series of really interesting courtyards, which were great for the restaurants and the F&B, which we'll be doing in Building 8, but also sort of connected these down to the promenade in somewhat of a semi-public way, which gave a good connection from the hotel down to the promenade. The rest of it is that the promenade, really, we sort of see this as a very sort of active, active place with all pedestrian friendly down here. It's no cars. I think you have to have a special permit to even drive down there. But so together, phase 1 and phase 2 sort of complete the whole master plan. And a little bit about the circulation. The only vehicular access to the site is through the arrival plaza here. So really everybody coming in by car, whether they're a resident or whether they're a hotel guest or want to go to the restaurant, so they really come in through here. And that was important for a lot of reasons. One, I mean, anybody from outside can come and park at the Staten Island Ferry and just kind of walk across, but it really allowed us to keep all the circulation within the site, just pedestrian, and really kept that promenade on the waterfront just for people. Of course, there's fire access and things like that in emergency, but it's just a real simple vehicular traffic right at the entrance here, which we think is quite nice. So it's a very pedestrian friendly site, and there's a series of walkways and ramps and steps which sort of take people from the plaza and, as I like to always think about, from the neighborhood too down to the promenade, because the whole idea of this is how do we really activate this to become a destination. So there's several ways. One is the walkway and the pathways here. The other one is sort of a series of courtyards and stairs and walkways which we've created between the new buildings and the historic buildings, and then also through the hotel. So it's sort of this public, semi-public, private sort of access to the promenade, which sort of gives the access from both the site and the neighborhood. These are some of the landscape thoughts. I think most of it you have seen before, particularly in phase 1. What's sort of new to this is how we're looking at phase 2, which is adding a little bit more landscape to the arrival plaza in the form of something in the middle. There'll be something that sort of greets the guests as they arrive, as well as a little bit more landscape here to give some buffer between the sort of the hard edge of the plaza and the historic building, which sort of sits below it, which you would see the top, sort of the upper floor and the roof. But also a series of courtyards sort of between these buildings. And sort of what's interesting about this project for me is, like, when we design hotels, we always say that it's all about discovery. It's about sort of finding the unknown. And what's unique about this is, although the hotel tower is sort of, in a sense, a very sort of formal or regular type of hotel, it's all the other spaces, I think, that make this project interesting. It's sort of the sunken courtyard at the entrance, which connects the arrival, the restaurant, and then the sort of the second floor of this. The stairs which bring you down, the courtyards between Building 7 and Building 8, Building 6 and Building 7. And then here, what we've done is we're very sensitive whenever we started to design the hotel tower, that it didn't compete with the historic buildings. And so we worked really hard to actually pull the building back and let it sort of sit within this little sort of crevice here between Building 8 and sort of the line of Building 10, which is out further. But what that did is it gave us an opportunity to create another courtyard here. So you have sort of these series of courtyards, which is kind of interesting. So it's not just the promenade, but it's the activity, I think, that happens between these courtyards, which is going to make it a really interesting public realm. And give sort of good opportunities for how the food and beverage and other entertainment from these things sort of spill out onto the promenade, as well as create more sort of private or semi-private spaces. These are just some of the planting materials, which I think you've seen most before. But again, just trying to reinforce the esplanade. It's people walking out here, going out to the pier, and then here where you can start to see a little bit more sort of the chairs and umbrellas and things like that, sort of sitting out onto the promenade. This section, I think, really explains sort of the stacking of the project very well. This is the arrival plaza up here, which is what we're calling, it's just like level 4, which is up there. So you can sort of see the challenge of arriving on top of this. It's great because you have the views sort of out to the water, and you can sort of frame that. But our challenge was, how do we not bury this building, which is Building 8, and that was a lot of the discussions with SHPO, is how do we expose as much of that facade as possible. And although sort of the original master plan had that sort of closed in, what we did is we took out another floor and created this sunken courtyard here, which is below the arrival plaza. The other challenge was how to, formally creating sort of a very simple sort of curtain wall building for the tower. Metaphorically, we kind of talked about it as like a beacon in the lighthouse. So you had sort of the historic character below, and then sort of the lighthouse, which sort of rose above it. But the challenge was, at some point, the historic building and the new building have to touch, because we have to, on the ground floor, because we have to get from the lobby to the what we're putting as the lobby bar and the sort of lounge at the top floor here. And we did that in a very sort of sensitive way by looking at how the building really only touches below the eave in a very small portion. And the canopy itself, which is sort of this folded plane, which comes up and then ties into this wall, which hides the entrance to the parking garage. It all becomes this sort of very simple architectural move, which ties it in at sort of the pedestrian level, but in a very sensitive way. And you really don't actually see how they touch. It's always sort of this tension between the two buildings, which is nice. And it preserved this entire facade of 2 floors of Building 8 being able to be exposed from the entrance, which was really important to us. This is looking back at Building 8. If you remember the picture from the pier with the kid on the scooter, looking back, this is where Building 10 is, the historic building, which is not in this project, and Building 8. And what we tried to do was to look at where our new tower would go, and how this would sort of look like it fit within there. It was sort of, it's not competing with the existing buildings, but it's really coming as this very simple, slender, clean sort of form, which fits between the historic structures and doesn't compete with them. And the fact that this is pushed back very far and doesn't touch or sort of sets beyond the back facade of Building 8 was really important. The hotel stacking is fairly straightforward. The lobby arrival is up here, and then on the lower floors we have sort of it's a ballroom, but I don't like to call it a ballroom. It's more of a multi-event space which can open up onto the promenade through its pre-function, which is quite interesting. And then you have a series of hotel rooms, and then on the top of the hotel would be a sort of destination restaurant and bar, which has great views. The nice thing about here is you really have views of Manhattan. You have direct views to the south here of the Wheel, and we're hoping this becomes a good destination. This is the south facade, and this really, you would only see the building from about this portion up, because of how the building adjacent to us to the south is sort of a very big building, has some height to it, plus We have another building right up behind us between Bay Street and our property. So this facade really becomes a side yard facade, which is really hidden from the public view. So this is kind of where we put all of our mechanical equipment and things like that, because it wouldn't be exposed to people except the building next door. This is a view from Bay Street. However, this is the elevation from the west, which would be from Bay Street. However, again, you would really only see the top portion of the tower from Bay Street. Because of there's another building that sits here. Plus, there's a slope that goes up to Bay Street. So all of this would be hidden, buried in the hillside and behind the adjacent property. These are sort of a series of renderings that we've done to start to study how the buildings kind of go together. And this is looking from the promenade, kind of just standing right here in this promenade, which is right now it's like this sort of parking lot that sort of serves people going to the maintenance facility. But you can really, as we've started to do this, we started to look at what happens. This sort of this public space. There's all kinds of things that could be programmed here. You could have a market out here. You could have things that tie into the restaurant of the hotel at different times of the year. You could have other events there. And it could be really this sort of interesting destination where people would come from all over, to use the public realm here. So it's not just about the promenade and how it works with the potential restaurants here, but it's about now that you have this sort of vibrancy happening on the Staten Island waterfront, what are other things that could happen here within this public space instead of maintenance vans sitting there. But this perspective.
We have to ask you to move a little faster. I'm sorry.
Okay, sure. So this perspective just sort of shows how the tower sits between the historic buildings. This one is sort of zoomed in. One of the things that we did focus on with SHPO was how the base of our building, of the hotel, connected to building 10 and what it looked like. And so what we've done is looked at several brick samples that sort of pick up the color of the brick from here and use that there. So the whole sort of character of what this looks like, the idea was to make it feel like it's part of that sort of vocabulary which is happening on the ground floor. This is the building in the middle. This is existing. It's going to be restored as is. It's right now it's empty. It'll be restaurants and shops and things like that. But it would be this one on all sides. It's being untouched. It's really just being restored as is. This is sort of down further on the promenade, looking back towards the hotel. And what's nice about it is, as you can see, how we pulled the hotel tower back. You really have the sort of the character of the promenade really stands out, and the hotel tower really sets back, so it doesn't become something that's competing with the vibrancy of the promenade. These are these vaults, these historic vaults, which sort of sit between the buildings here. These are going to be restored. We don't know what they're going to be used for, but it would be something that ties into the activity on the promenade and things that happen in the buildings. But this is sort of a perspective showing the courtyard where those vaults exist. One of the things is having a connection from the upper level to the lower level. This is behind building 6, and this is just a stair which goes alongside the parking garage, and this is sort of a semi-private connection between the upper plaza to the lower promenade. This is an aerial sort of looking up above, sort of very preliminary, but at least you could start to see where there would be landscape at the plaza, where you would see the sunken courtyards, and how the tower really sets back from building 8 and doesn't touch with it, especially on that south facade there. Some of the materials, it's a simple aluminum panel wall system on this part of the hotel, a curtain wall system that we're still sort of developing on the main hotel tower, but a simple, clean architectural expression for the tower, something that's sort of very simple, clean, modern, and in a sense disappears. These are some of the materials that we're looking at. It's sort of a combination between vision glass and spandrel glass to get a character on the facade. You know, using some metal channels to create reveals and datum lines at different points. We are using free glass in certain areas where we want to get an expression on the facade, whether it's at the entrance or between certain rooms on the hotel facade. And then this sort of looks at how everything kind of goes together, where you have the vision glass and the fruity glass and the spandrel glass, and this sort of juxtapose curtain. On the lower portion, which is really the base that connects to Building 10 and right across from Building 8, this is sort of where we've ended up in dialogue with SHPO. And looking at sort of a simple brick facade system with a metal reveal at each floor, metal channels here. And then some of the landscape things, just very simple, clean tables and chairs and trash receptacles and drinking fountains and things like that, which would be along the promenade in the public space. And then some of the lighting, the papers and things like that. So trying to give good character to it, a little bit more contemporary, very clean, and with a sort of timeless look of the landscape. And some of which I think you've seen a lot of this before, it's really was started in phase 1, but the landscape using a lot of indigenous things that you would see along the waterfront, mixed with some colors of perennials and ground covers to give some character in certain areas like at the entrance. So that's where we are.
Thank you. I think that in general, we're all quite pleased with this project and the continuation of a lot of the things that were started in phase 1. And the one comment that a number of commissioners have raised is going to be complicated when I tell you this. It's the building that you've worked so closely with SHPO. Maybe you could go to the view from the promenade that looks at the intersection.
This is interesting. There, it's there. Right?
Yeah, but you know, keep going back a couple more
That
down.
way.
Yeah. So where do you want to?
Well, so you kept saying SHPO every time you mentioned this. And I'm new, but I was appraised of the previous scheme for this area. So, and I had some questions when you had that aerial looking down. That's why I wanted to go back, because it's not, I guess you're taking glass when you say there's this clear shot from the pier looking up, because building 8 is building 8. Building 8 is on my left.
Building 8 is right here, which
Building
is
10 is,
building 10 is here, which
and
is
that's the one you're not part of.
it's outside of the
Outside
property.
of you guys, right? And so you then have this make up something new here in the corner.
Exactly, yes.
So I mean, I thought the first scheme looked great with the glass and the metal.
The master plan.
The master plan, excuse me, that had the it was a stair kind of access. It looked like it was a way you could get up. There was metal and glass, right? And there was brick that was held back. I know you have the problem because on the south elevation, you're establishing the base, right? Where you have all your mechanical stuff and you're trying to bring it through. Although nobody knows that, of course, because they can't go around there and, oh, they didn't do that, you know. So, or it couldn't be pulled up because it's a very unfortunate color. And then it also seems, I mean, I'm uncomfortable with it because it seems to be trying to look old, but it's why? why not just be new? I mean, and the tower's not gonna disappear, it's a big, beautiful building. You know, you were given this, the project, it was great, and the tower's beautiful, I think the curtain wall, everything's very beautiful. And so I don't know why it can't come back and resolve itself there. And I'm curious about what the program is inside,
In
in the
here,
brown thing.
well, if it was all open and glass, it would work better with the program. Because, and we had it that way, and that's where we were kind of pushed to go into this direction. What's interesting in here is this is a double height, this is our ballroom, this is our event space. And there was a couple of reasons we pushed the ballroom down to this floor. One, because it's the only place you can, you know, get 6,000 or 7,000 square feet. But we really feel that the uniqueness of having a ballroom on this promenade is to be able to let it spill out into the promenade and vice versa. And so you can imagine an event happening in here, which is tied into out here. And actually, some of the first things we had was much more contemporary with the whole thing being open and being able to be open and give that flexibility where you could almost imagine, you know, everything being open here, and the ballroom sort of flows to this sort of courtyard which we created between the two buildings and then to the promenade. That somehow through the process it got pushed back to this. I mean, if that supported this group,
I mean,
is to
is
try to
the-
push it
and what's
back in the other
the top of
direction.
it there? What is that tan stuff on top?
Here,
There, yeah.
that is a small little ballroom. It's not really a ballroom, it's more like sort of a larger meeting room. This needs to be resolved a little bit more, the connection here, but there's some outdoor space.
The material of the lightish material, is that?
That's aluminum panels.
Oh, that's aluminum panels.
Yeah.
I think what I mean, it looks like a compromise right now.
Yeah.
And it's really neither here nor there. It's not old, and it's not really strong enough to be part of your contemporary insert. And so I think what we're asking is if you could, and feel free to, you know, blame it all on us. If you could take another look at that and just make it more decisively contemporary.
Okay.
If it has to be masonry, I mean, I think the scale line that's being respected makes sense. The overall massing, we don't want to obviously mess with the program, but it just, I think, needs to be a little bit more of today.
I agree, and I'm glad to hear that. Because, I mean, I think when it sort of became brick with sort of trying to replicate punched openings, it sort of lost it. I mean, we could still do it. I mean, the massing, like you said, we were very sensitive to the scale and the roof lines, and even how it sort of related to the building across Building 8. But the materiality kind of letting it down a little bit. And if we could, it still could be masonry, it could be some sort of limestone, and sort of bigger panels. There could be a lot of different ways to express it where it's still contemporary, but not sort of competing with everything else.
You had a section drawing that went through there and everything was white inside there. And I thought your argument about it being a ballroom was a very good point. There, back, there, isn't that it?
Yeah.
Everything in white, what is that?
Actually, so this is the ballroom.
Yeah.
Actually, it's all of this.
I mean, it'd be great to see what's going on because I think the argument is that you're making is it's flowing out, right?
And it's the terminus of the promenade.
The terminus, and it's supposed to be
Right.
open rather than be part of this marching down of the historic buildings.
The ballroom really sort of sits in here. There's some transfer beams that come across that are pretty deep. But really, this is a big ballroom that has a pre-function that sort of sits here, and that pre-function we've always envisioned as being, it can be closed if there's, you know, a private event going on, but it can be really open to sort of almost the courtyard, the promenade, and the ballroom really become one. That'd be great.
Is it necessary for your program to have that structure on the top? No, on this one, that.
This, yes, that it's a meeting room on that floor with some sort of smaller private meeting rooms. But I think if we were to rethink this facade here, we would rethink how this massing ties into that a little bit more
Waiting room for Zoom.
for the hotel.
And you showed me two different versions of the notch, and I didn't know what the face of that is back up in there. You have big columns in one view, and then, I don't know where they went here.
Well, this is actually a suite, one of the hotel suites.
Oh, that big
up there.
notch.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's
Big columns.
it's a DOB thing. At a certain height, we have to have minimum footprint, and so we looked at it at putting some of the restaurant there, but then you had rooms above it, and it really didn't work. So it's actually not as big as it looks, but you have a suite that really the presidential suite sort of opens up to that.
Well, where are the columns, though? They're big columns that have disappeared, unless I'm not understanding it. In one of the views, there are columns.
Yes, there are
There
columns
are big
there.
columns there,
It's just not showing up in the elevation.
because it's not a cantilever.
Yeah, yeah, yes, these are correct. Yes, it's not a cantilever.
That's expensive, right? They're
It's
just.
too bad if you rent the suite.
There's compromises, but we lose the columns. We
Well,
take
everyone's
the wall.
gonna look at the underside of that. Yeah, right.
Yeah, we haven't really got into working at this, but this is the highest priced suite in the hotel, so it'll be spectacular in the outdoor space.
Okay, thank you very much. Thanks.
Great, thank you.
Hi, I'm Nancy Prince from Parks, and Yankee Stadium has a lease with us, so that's why we're here with them. They're working on an addition to the stadium, so presenting will be Doug Behar and Cindy Camera. And I'll let them take it away. And the architects are HOK. These guys are going to represent the project.
Hi, thank you for taking the time to meet with us today. Again, Doug Behar, City Camera, New York Yankees. We've got into the stadium in 2009 and through involvement of our operations and our business with baseball and subsequently soccer and other public events, we saw the need to make some changes for the better. We identified an area in our building by Gate 4 that the way it operates was kind of different than other spots in our building, and it lacked things that was amiss on our part when we opened up and when we built the stadium. We had an area we have an area that's used for a minimum of 120 big public events and a lot of other smaller events as indicated here. The area boxed in red, which is the corner of 161 and Jerome Avenue. And it's an area that's used that has gotten a little bit messy with our need to queue lines and appropriately security screen our guests that come in. We're under Major League Baseball procedures that require us to do a certain level of screening, and we're also Department of Homeland Security Safety Act certified, which requires us to do a certain level of screening. So the way the footprint exists now, which is indicated here on this particular slide, based on the way it has to operate to appropriately screen people, it extends further out. The lines, as shown here, we have metal barriers and tensor barriers and portable security magnetometers that kind of clog up this area and doesn't look correct. What we're trying to do is simplify this space, condense this space, have it look the way the rest of the facility looks, and also create an overhang like the other gates do to give some weather protection to the fans that are queuing up. What we're looking to do, Cindy will actually kind of take a little bit from here of some of the things that this process would take.
Yeah, I think this gate is, obviously we have 81 baseball games, you all know that, and then we do another 120 events in the building, from bar mitzvahs to weddings to NYU graduation to all those other events that we hold at the stadium. We probably use this particular gate, which is really why we're calling this out, probably close to 80 to 160 times. This is our primary entrance for any of our non-baseball functions at the stadium. What we're looking to do is to clean it up. We're very big on any of the renovations and modifications we make in the building. We want it to look like it did as if we opened it up in 2009. So we're always very cognizant of the look. We work very hard with our architect to make sure that we're drilling down for both safety and look of the stadium, which is what we did with this version. This is probably like the 10th or 12th version of it. We kept pushing back to HOK. We wanted safety. We wanted very cognizant of the community that's using the plaza and using that sidewalk, so trying to limit that footprint as much as possible, but providing us with an aesthetically pleasing gate that allows us to operate, as Doug mentioned, from a security protocol and really enhance the experience for our guests coming, whether it's for a baseball game or one of our community events or one of our public events like the NYU graduation. So what we're looking at doing is, you see to the left, we kind of have done a rendering with the canopy. We're looking at three components. We're looking at a canopy which provides that protection for the guests waiting for either a game or waiting for that wedding, bar mitzvah. We're bringing our roll call out, so you can see the roll call that's identified as a roll call. A booth out there, again, we're using the granite, the limestone, all the same finishes that we have on the exterior of the building. And then we're looking to expand or kind of alter the concrete pad that's sitting there right now. It's just like an elevated platform, which really serves no purpose as far as assisting us to line queue. So we want to take advantage of that footprint, extend it a little bit, and actually kind of create that switchback for both ADA purposes and allows us to queue more lines, get rid of that metal barricade that's sitting out there now during our games. And we have our nice, near the end of the program, and I think in the package you have, it's all the decorative metals again that we've, that high-end materials that we use throughout the exterior of the space. The canopy then it's a cantilever. We went, again, pushed back to our architect. We didn't want the footings. We didn't want to take up some of the space on the ground for, that obviously will limit the sidewalk used by, our community in and around the stadium as well as our guests. So we went with a cantilever. We're very open on what this material needs to be. We've chosen through our architect the cow wall system, which we already have in the building in our great hall. We also have the cow wall in a non-public space, but upstairs on our 300 level. But we're also open to, does that need to be metal to be like the gate right next to it? So again, if approved, we hope it is, looking for, your desired look on, to making sure that it fits within the rest of the building and then the community that it sits around. So this is just a kind of a rendering of what this would look like from the street side. So as you can see, very nice decorative metals, signage nothing big, very simple, through our suite entrance, our premium entrance, our roll call sign again. The gate 4, which is adjacent to this location, is our box office. So the same signage, the same fonts, the same look, the same brushed metal that we use, that high-end metal. And with the switchback that allows our guests to actually enter through this entrance. It gives us an opportunity to do 2 more lines as well, which is big so the queues don't have to be as long. And it also gives us the opportunity to do 1 additional ADA entry, and really a thought-out ADA entry for wheelchair access for our guests. This will show you, again, just an elevation view of what that would look like with the cantilever canopy coming off the building. And then our roll call security check-in area, to be compliant with Homeland Security, Safety Act certification, NLB, is having that x-ray machine in that room, as well as pulling that roll call out and having that opportunity for both non-baseball. We do a lot of events that we try to keep everything outside the building before they enter in the building. From a security protocol, we don't want to, we need to screen them both for Homeland, but also as our, security security is number one, safety is number one, as well as our guest experience. So we really need to do that screening in advance of them coming through the gates, and that would be occurring here before they enter our property, and identifying things. We've called out the materials here. We have very high-end limestone, which we still have in attic stock, and our granite, which is very, very high-end, imported, that we would be using in all of the space, the same windows for our will call. Again, it's going to look like it always belonged there, and it was built in 2009, which has always been our goal, whether on the exterior or interior of the property. These are some of the materials throughout the building. So the top left is the rails that, again, that are on our exterior that we would continue in this space. I talked about whether it's a metal canopy or a cowl wall. The metal is on the left, so we have that on the exterior. We also have the cowl wall, again, if approved. We would be open to either one of these solutions. Our end-all be-all goal is really to enhance that experience and provide, that coverage for them. And whatever, again, the committee here would see fit that exterior of the space, we are 100% open to on that. And then this just tells you some of the lighting we have. Again, it's all high-end and it's all LED. Doug can speak to this. We've received awards after awards on LED and our commitment to sustainability throughout the building, and everything's being converted. All of our new projects are 100% LED at the stadium. So I think that's like a run-through of what we're requesting, and just opening up for questions.
Thank you. It's a thoughtful improvement, and to everybody, to the public as well as the people who come to games or events. So this is on the consent agenda later, so I think they're looking for our input on the materiality of the canopy. So let's hear from you.
First of all, I just had a question. When you say high-end metal, do you mean stainless steel?
No, it's actually all of our metal, believe it or not, because we oversee like all of our projects, and just the dollars that we pay for it. It's just we use this Post Road Ironworks, which is probably the most expensive in the city, but they do the most beautiful decorative, like underlit lighting.
No,
And
that's
all of our
for
rails
metal.
are there, but it's a metal, it's a stainless color,
It's stainless
if you will. Yeah,
No.
but it's that color.
It's not stainless.
It's a stainless color, but it's a higher
But
end.
your handrails and
All of our handrails
are
correct.
stainless steel.
It's a stainless steel color, but it's a little bit higher end of a metal. Yeah.
What is the method?
I don't know what that is.
What is the method?
It's not a yellow, it's not a steel, it's more of a steel than an aluminum. It's just a higher end with,
Is it painted to look
Yeah,
like
it's
this?
yes, so it'll look like all the other rails that we have throughout the
And all
property.
the rails are painted metal.
It's like, well, for rusting purposes, it's
Right,
got that,
stainless
yeah,
is
exactly, yeah, yeah.
But it's not stainless. I mean, it's just a question. It's just
Yeah.
curious what high-end it was. Because the detailing goes up into the canopy.
Well, it could be the cowl wall, yeah, it could be the cowl wall or the metal.
Well, in the section, there are, in your drawing, you're painted, because to make the cantilever, you have to have steel cantilever.
Correct,
Right, steel beams there. So
Correct.
those are going to be fairly prominent.
correct.
So those are going to be painted, I mean, whether it's solid or, I mean, either you're going to wrap it all in your metal, stainless steel or whatever it is, and then you're going to expose that beam, the cantilever beam, as cowl wall.
Yeah, I think, again, we go back to, we're 100% open with our architect as well as this committee, we're very, the look obviously is extremely important. So if you guys come back and say, that's great, but it needs to be covered in this metal, this look, to look like everything else, we'll achieve that goal.
Can we go back and look at just the design of the will call
This one?
from the exterior? No, on
The rendering.
one of the renderings. Really one.
There.
Yes, that's perfect. So I guess,
Yeah.
my own, and I'm totally think this is great, and congratulations for doing it, but I didn't understand the roof, the introduction of the sort of, and I'm not an architect, roof detailing of the real call. It seemed inconsistent with the sort of simple, uniform, right? And it's like a pediment, it steps out, and I didn't know why you would introduce that architectural feature where you've done so beautifully and not having them anywhere else. There's this lovely flat plane that really symbolizes how the Yankee Stadium looks with those granite blocks, and here you have a kind of pseudo pediment that just to me seems odd, but if no one else objects.
Well, that's an extra piece, right?
Yeah,
That's a
I would
new
say, well,
piece.
why are we putting an extra piece?
Yeah, down the line, so like by our Great Hall, our Babe Ruth Plaza, there's that look to it. And I think the architect tried to keep a little, because we do have that little depth around the property, so I think they were looking to keep that component here, not introducing a new, but trying to maintain that look. Once again, if for this particular corner and space, we'd rather see that.
I mean, I don't want
I
to.
agree, but I mean, it is a new piece.
Yes.
That's a new volume.
Exactly, it's just
right?
platted a
But
little
I mean,
differently.
if it's related to something that's already in the building,
No,
it would be great to see what it's
I would like to see it
relating to.
Yeah, you can, yeah, I think you just get, like at the top of page 4, but
It's under the arch window.
yeah,
Yeah, it looks. No.
At the base, over to the left.
to the,
Go to the left.
There.
Yeah, right
Is
there.
that- is
on
that
the
what
left
it is?
side.
they were
It's
trying
like
to
picking
raise,
up that there.
Yeah.
Okay.
they were trying to
So
keep
that's
that.
okay.
Moving that
Here,
down.
a little gray.
That's fine.
That's fine.
I mean, I guess the advantage of the cow wall is you get daylight.
Lighting.
Yeah.
I like the column.
And then if you, at night, if they could uplight it, it would be
Yeah.
great, because then it would work as a light.
It's gonna be better.
So it would give you some mileage. So I think, I mean, if you were asking for one person's opinion, I think the cow wall is
Me too. It's gonna be better.
lighter,
Thanks.
but you do need to be mindful of the beam. That's quite a big beam, that
100%.
looks quite small.
Yes, yeah, it looks good, yeah.
That's a very
It's a little
heavy
bit bigger
piece,
than
so, and the beams are beautiful, so it'd just be nice to see it, love it, and see what it's gonna look like.
I agree.
You know?
Okay, so it would, since those were just one person's opinion, but a very important person, she knows that opinion. So we're recommending Caldwell.
Okay, great.
This would have to come back, I think, for final, so we can see the detailing of that beam. But yes, we will approve this afternoon with the condition of Caldwell.
Great.
Thank you.
Excellent, we appreciate your time.
Thank you.
We're here to review the flood resiliency infrastructure project at the New York Aquarium. And I'm going to introduce Sue Chen, who is Director of Architecture at the Wildlife Conservation Society, to take it.
Sure. Hi there. I also have with me Trent Christensen, who is a project manager from Domenico and Partners, our design team or consultant team. So, as you all know, in October of 2012, New York City was hit with Hurricane Sandy. You can see the location of the aquarium very much out here on the edge of the ocean. So we were inundated by water, flood water across our whole campus. Our campus is a 14-acre campus, and so there pretty much was no area that wasn't affected except for one little high point, which is very little. What's interesting to note, just for information, is that the flooding occurred not from the ocean side where you would expect it to. There is a teeny-weeny creek that goes back in here, Coney Island Creek, and so that filled up, and then the water came in and flooded from the Surf Avenue side. So it was water surrounding us, and that's important to what we're going to show you today. So Trent's going to take us through some of the requirements.
So this is an example of the New York Aquarium site within the NFIP flood map, the firm map that's supplied by FEMA. And our site is within the zone AE. You can see the site right here, and that's that small spot that Sue mentioned that's above the flood plain. So within the AE zone, the base flood elevation is 11 feet. And we have to design for the design flood elevation, which is 11 feet plus 1 foot for freeboard. So our design elevation is 12 feet, and that's around 4.5 to 5 feet relative to grade around the entire site that we have to protect.
So, any sort of construction project at the New York Aquarium is a huge challenge. And it's a challenge because of the fact that we're designing for multiple species and working around multiple species. So, a lot of what you see here is equipment. This is all life support systems equipment, what we call LSS. These are the pumps and filtration that are necessary to keep all of the tanks at the aquarium in the pristine and appropriate environmental needs for the animals. So if any of you have ever had goldfish, you understand that any change to water chemistry, any change to temperature, those sorts of things can have huge impacts on the life that lives within that water. So although what we're showing here is a lot of the pumps and filtration equipment, it is all intricately integrated with the overall building systems and the infrastructure at the aquarium. So it all relies on electricity, it all relies on the plumbing and the mechanical systems for heating and cooling the water. So it's not a standalone system, and that's important to think about, because as you think about protecting the aquarium, you have to protect it all. FEMA has been absolutely understanding of all of these issues, understanding of the fact that we are a facility that addresses multiple species, and has then therefore approved the site-wide mitigation and the money that will support the building of the site-wide mitigation for us. So the other thing I want to say is that in addition to the systems for the animals, you can't just have electrical shutdowns when you want. You have to sort of stage all of this stuff appropriately. So doing construction work around all of this is also a huge challenge for us. The other challenge is that this aquarium is 14 acres. It's a whole bunch of different buildings and structures from different time frames. So we have different projects that have different wall details, and we don't necessarily have documentation on everything. So that was another way, it was another challenge for us in thinking about how to do these interventions in a way that had the sort of lightest touch on the aquarium. This is just a reminder of the fact that the aquarium is 14 acres. These, that's basically our boundary there. The cyclone is right there. This is the footprint of the shark project, and that is under construction. So I think I have a photo of it under construction later on. This was a project that had been approved back here in 2012, and because of Sandy, was delayed in getting started in terms of its construction. This is a view from the beach looking back at the boardwalk, and so you can see this is the edge of the boardwalk, and that is Symphony of the Sea, which is an art wall that's there as well. So I think Trent's going to take us through the concept for site-wide program protection, but I just want to say that the important aspect to this concept is that it uses existing structures, infills where these gaps are in terms of our protection, and really tries to look at holistically protecting the areas of the aquarium.
So we divided the site into two main protection areas of protection. So we have the west yard over here and the main campus, which includes the east service yard and all of the public spaces. And the site perimeter is made up of a few different things. There's an architectural concrete knee wall that's above the GFE, as well as along Surf Avenue. There's a blue fence, which we'll go into a little later, that's attached to the front of the knee wall. And as well, we have removable flood logs, which are some of these dashed lines here. Anywhere that we need vehicle or man access within the site, we obviously can put a permanent barrier there. And within the site, we have site sump pumps, and in addition, building sump pumps to pump any seepage or rainwater that collects within the protection perimeter.
This is just kind of detailing out where we are proposing the new walls and the fence replacement. So just to give you a sense of the existing conditions, as I said, it's an accretion of structures over time. So there are many different sort of existing conditions. These are views along Surf Avenue of a chain link fence that's basically infilled with a blue plastic slat. and that's existing. These are existing conditions looking at, this is our main entry path looking back at the Olms building, and then along the west yard, along West 10th Street, this was actually the fence that you see there, and the planting was done as part of the animal care facility, which was a project that was approved at the same time as Shark just before, because it was a back-of-house building that was there to take in the sharks that were coming in for our new project. These are some views from the parking lot looking sort of back at the Olms building. And these are the views under the boardwalk. So if you look at this bottom slide here, this is Ocean Wonders under construction. And that is the construction fence. The boardwalk level is at the bottom of that. That is that slatted walkway above you. So all of the protection that we're doing, all of the flood protection that we're doing on the side is underneath the boardwalk and completely outside the public view. We actually, with the Parks Department, share that space under the boardwalk here. Actually, the Parks Department owns it, but they let us use it for utilities and also for our back and forth in terms of operations. So basically, the boardwalk goes out and we have a piece of it. You can see out here, we have filters and other things that are underneath the boardwalk as well. These are elevations that basically show the different interventions in the different areas, mostly along Surf Avenue, where we're proposing putting in the flood wall with the blue fence in front of it. And then you can see, well, you shouldn't be able to see, but there is a flood wall that's in the back here that will have planting in front of it. Again, we're trying to minimize these sort of very concrete, well, they are concrete, but these infrastructural pieces minimize their impact on the visitor. One of the things that we're looking at here, so this is the main entrance to the aquarium, but we have this giant administration building here, which has always been confusing to our visitors. So obviously we can't do anything about that right now, but as we think about replanting, we can really think about creating more of a context for the aquarium of a coastal landscape, so using lots of dune grasses, and we've worked very closely with the Parks Department to look at tree remediation here and also to increase the diversity of the trees on this site. This is another view from the entry plaza, looking back down towards the parking lot with Olms right there. That is the Beebe bathysphere. Will Beebe went down to the depths of the ocean. He's about as tall as, he was about as tall as Trent, and that bathysphere is about this big. So he and another man actually got in that and went down to the bottom of the ocean, which is kind of an amazing thing. So this is again with new grasses and new trees. This is along Surf Avenue, and you can see again it's a hodgepodge, the existing buildings and then also the fence lines. So our goal is to clean that up a little bit by doing something very simple. Again, the flood wall behind with the blue screen fence in front. This blue screen fence exists over by the animal care facility. It was approved as part of that project. This is looking at that corner where the handball courts are on the left-hand side and kind of looking back, and this is the version with the flood wall in it. I hope you agree that it is cleaning up and making it a nicer appearance to the Surf Avenue side. So two very typical sections, one that shows the flood wall with the fence in front, and then the other condition that we're using a lot, which is the flood wall with planting on both sides of it, mostly dune grasses. So Trent, do you want to talk about the temporary flood lots?
Sure. So this slide, if you can see the red lines, these are the areas where the temporary flood log system is, and as part of this design, DDP, by code, we're mandated to provide a deployment manual. So this will be with the New York Aquarium, so they will know when to deploy these and when to take them down. So these are temporary. They'll be deployed obviously before a storm and then after a storm they'll be taken down. And these two areas here are, they're basically small shipping containers, and that's where all of the, and they're provided by the manufacturers, so that's where all of the flood log posts and flood logs are stored when they're not deployed.
And that's a back-of-house location.
Yes, and there is a generator platform that will be constructed that these will basically slide under. And this is exactly how they look when they're deployed, the flood logs. So you can see we'll have this condition with a concrete knee wall on both sides and then the flood logs in between. And these are some of the typical details. So we have a couple different conditions where the flood log is attached to an existing wall and where the flood logs are cast into our knee wall. And anywhere that this channel is exposed, the manufacturer provides a stainless steel cover so that those channels can be protected from weathering, and also it's more aesthetically pleasing than seeing the exposed channel. And when they're not deployed, these are the flood logs deployed, and this is the foundation. This is the only thing that will be permanent as far as the flood log construction goes. And you'll see this small plate here where the posts, that's where the posts are attached. And when they're not deployed, you'll see it's just a steel cover plate on there.
I talked a little bit about the planting before. These are the existing plantings at the aquarium. As you probably know, it's a pretty harsh environment out there with the salt and also the wind. So getting stuff to grow out there is somewhat challenging, though the Parks Department's had great success with certain things. We've had success with other things. So we're trying to stick within a palette of things that we know will withstand those conditions. So these are the existing grasses that we've used and some of the Japanese black pines and other things. And again, we're trying to increase the diversity out here, so we're adding some other species like eastern red cedars and black gums and river birch, depending on the locations. At the entry, I really want to sort of do something that's a little bit more coastal, so we're sticking with the grasses and the black pines at the entry to kind of hopefully scoop you in a little bit more. And that's Nuka. Nuka just went off to Seattle on a breeding loan where she is happily dating. And hopefully will result in some offspring that we can bring back to the aquarium. So we're excited about it. Question, Bree?
Well, I'd say that it's a very sensitive proposal. I completely understand why it has to be the entire campus. It's kind of a no-brainer. But what you've done is, taken a challenge and turned it into an aesthetic improvement, which can't always be said for these flood wall solutions. So I think, and even some lowering of fences, not to mention the consistency. So I'm very pleased with it. I know it does result in some tree removal, but again, you're taking it as an opportunity to rethink the palette and make it more consistent and appropriate. So other concerns, questions?
I mean, I think the detail of the fence is very nice, very sensitive, and you see through it, that's a lot of it. I'm curious about how you light it, or how it works, how you illuminate that at night, and
So we don't actually light our perimeter fence at night because we don't necessarily want to encourage people to come over the fence. The parking, so from the Surf Avenue side where you see most of that fence line, the parking lot has lights in it, so the parking lot beyond will be lit, so you'll see through it, but the fence itself won't be lit. And then once Shark opens on the boardwalk side, that will be illuminated at night. There's a whole lighting scheme that we went through for that piece. So I think from our perspective, at night we want to attract people from the boardwalk side. We're not actually open beyond 5 o'clock, except in the summer on Friday nights we have started extending our hours and opening late. And that may change as traffic changes are coming out, as it has dramatically changed over the last few years. We may think about extending our hours more, but again, it would be more encouragement from the boardwalk side.
so none of it, everything was below the boardwalk as you showed in the.
That's right, so all of that
Nothing
stuff, you won't see any of those. Right. What
Which
you'll
is
see
great,
is the
because
Shark
that facade
project.
is so phenomenal.
So I have to tell you, I am so excited because right now, the structure for that shimmer wall is pretty much complete. And in about 3 weeks, they're going to start putting in the cables with the little aluminum tiles. So there are 33,000 4.5 by 4.5 aluminum tiles that are just going to move with the breeze and reflect the sky. And I just, it's been a long time coming. I can't wait for it to happen. Great. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Anyway, Nancy Pins from the Parks Department. I'm back with portions of the East River Esplanade that we're working on. And we're doing this in-house.
on the cusp.
Okay. My name is Ricardo Hingham, Senior Landscape Architect at the Parks Department. I'm here to present the reconstruction portions of the East River Esplanade. And the main objective of this project is the structural reconstruction of sections of the East River Esplanade that were identified by a 2013 Arcadis report, a maritime engineering report, that were the most in need of structural repair, that were the most dire in terms of failure. And so that's our main objective, but while we're doing that, we're also going to be replacing the top side, the pavements, the curb, the railings, the plantings, and the highway barrier, which in many areas is deteriorating. Part of our goal is to provide, where possible, a separation from the slow-moving, sitting, passive use of the Esplanade and the faster-moving bicyclists and rollerbladers and joggers and just fast walkers. Where possible, where room allows. We also want to ensure material consistency with other segments of the East River Esplanade that have already been designed and approved by PEC, that are in construction now, some of them. And then we also had an intention of doing a pilot design for a highway barrier along the FDR, and the Esplanade, and to provide for more safety and more separation from the Esplanade, from the highway. And we'll discuss this, I'll discuss this at the end of the presentation, but suffice it to say we are stepping back a little bit from the ambitiousness of our original proposal of doing a pilot design. And I'll discuss that in more detail later. The total budget for 2 segments of this, we're only right now presenting phase 1, but there will be a phase 2, it's already funded, and the total budget is $38 million. The phase that we're discussing now is $15 million, and then the next phase will be $23 million. And all combined, they will affect 9 city blocks worth of investment. Okay, the 2 segments that we'll discuss now as phase 1 are 88th to 90th Street. They're right in front of Carl Schurz Park, right where Gracie Mansion is in that segment, and then also at East 114th Street. And then the phase 2 will be directly north of both of those segments. So the phase 2 will go from 90th to 91st and 115th. So we'll have 2 segments that are contiguous in both the north and the south. As you can see from the flood areas, they're both segments are in flood areas. The phase 1 segment down along Carl Schurz Park, if you know that segment of Esplanade, you're actually going from pretty high elevation down into the flood zone. So all of it is in the flood zone, but then the phase 2 portion that is in the flood zone. And then land use, they're both adjacent to parks or right across the highway from parks. Phase 1 is along the northern edge of Carl Schurz Park where Gracie Mansion is, and then the phase 2 of the 90th to 91st is actually across the highway from Asphalt Green. And then at East 114th Street, East 115th, you're right across the highway from Thomas Jefferson Park and High School. So we looked, of course, at the recent precedents that were approved by PDC that are in construction now. This portion, which is right in front of Rockefeller University, where Rockefeller University is going to deck over, we have a section of Esplanade that's being reconstructed. And the key features that we thought were important to note were that there is separation here between the more passive, slower use of right along the shoreline, and then the faster use of the shared use path just to the interior. If you look at the design itself, you can see there's this serpentine shape of the plant beds and the pathway, and the materials that are being used are they're reusing the hex pavers, reusing the S-rail C-rail, reusing the B-pole light poles, and the 1964 World's Fair bench. And then just to the north of that, between East 70th and East 72nd, in front of the Hospital for Special Surgery, a separate project that has been approved, it is not yet under construction, kind of follows this precedent with a serpentine plant bed, the 64 World's Fair bench, the B-pole, B12 light poles, the restored S-rail, C-rail, and the asphalt hex pavers. So if we look at the existing conditions of our segment between 88th and 90th Street, we can see the structural conditions, how dire they are in certain portions, especially down along the northern portion at the bottom of the hill. We start out kind of at a higher elevation here, and it slopes down to a lower elevation here at the north. This is where the overturning is most severe. The wall is clearly failing. In other segments, the wall is falling apart, it's in disrepair. It's not failing quite as badly. And you can see this reflected in the top side. Sorry. In the north, the southern portion on the higher elevation, you can see the asphalt is actually in pretty good shape. This is going downhill, down towards the north. And then this is in the southern section, right along here, where the asphalt is failing. And it's failing and it continues to fail, and the failure is spreading. So these movable barriers just keep moving and widening. And so it's fairly critical right here at this time. Another thing you'll notice about this is that there's a row of benches all along the railing, at least at the top section. This row of benches goes all the way down to about here, and then along the bottom section the benches stop. And this is reflected in the plan. We're at a top elevation of 26.4 and a bottom elevation of 8.4, so it goes down 18 feet in elevation. It's about a 3 to 5% slope. The slope, probably the steepest area is right down here in the middle, and then it's less steep down here. And I'll explain why that's important in a second. And then the areas where the sinkholes are biggest are right along here. Here's showing our proposed plan, and then just to show the context of the phase 1 and the phase 2. This is the phase 1 to the south, and then the phase 2 to the north, which will go all the way to 91st Street, right where the municipal transfer station is right now, where it's currently being constructed. So again, here's this is what we're proposing. Right now, see, you have the row of benches that goes and stops here. What we're proposing to do is maintain the row of benches here, and then pull in another row of benches here where it's actually less steep, and then pull the benches out from in front here, and then push them back here, where we might be able to make up the grade change and make it less steep. And this creates two areas where you have, one of the things you'll notice when you're in the existing conditions that you're going down the hill and the bench backs are right there in front of you. We wanted to create a little more separation between the people sitting on the benches and the people who are moving fast up in the upland area. So we've created these paver areas here, these tree wells, and bench seating and tree areas. The trees cannot be very big because they're too close to the structure to use big trees, so we're proposing to use smaller trees, something in the family of Magnolia virginiana, sweet bay magnolia, or Amalanke or something in that size. Just to show a little bit closer, these are the paver beds where the benches are, and the trees, two trees on either end. The tree pits would be approximately 4 by 6. So they really only can accommodate smaller trees. And then there would be bench, and then in the middle there would be companion seating. And then the same on the other side. Here in the middle we would pull the benches up here and have a little more openness, so when you're coming down here it would not obstruct kind of an open view as you're coming down and entering here. So there would be a little middle section where it's a little more open, where it's also a little steeper. This is a section showing how it would look. This is the upland section would be where the fast-moving people are, and then the shoreline section, which would be between 4 and 5 feet wide, would be more the strolling section, the sitting section, the slow-moving section. And then in the 114th Street segment, we have a relieving platform along here, which is completely deteriorated and has to be reconstructed entirely. That's probably the most urgent portion of this project. This is what the conditions look like now structurally. You can see there's failure. The pavement is falling apart. There's sinkholes, there's subsidence. It's very unsafe, and right now, as a matter of fact, there's a bridge. As you can see this yellow thing right now, that's a bridge bridging over this area so the pedestrians are not subjected to the failure that's happening over here. And here's a picture of that bridge in plan. It's a temporary bridge. This is where the sinkhole is the worst, right there in the middle. This is the phase 1, and then the phase 2 is to the north. So we're showing, because these two segments are both funded and they're both eventually going to be done, we're showing it together as what we're proposing as a complete picture. And the main design objective here is to push all the plantings and seating along the high highway barrier here, create a nice wide screen planting to buffer the Esplanade experience from the highway, and then have the seating pushed back here. Now, where there are existing benches along here, we're proposing to keep them, but we're not proposing to put them in where they don't already exist. And then this is just the phase one, so that was phase 1 and 2. This is just the phase 1 portion that is coming before you now. We will be coming to phase 2, but that gives you a little bit of a preview. We are going to be replacing the existing asphalt hex pavers and the existing lighting, putting in as many trees and plants as possible to further that screening along the Esplanade, along the highway. And this is what it looks like in section. This is actually a fairly accurate representation of the new structure that's being proposed. And it's a relieving platform on these 2 piles. And the platform is 16 feet from this edge to this edge, which is 16 feet that cannot be plant material. That has to be paved because of the structure. So all the plant material is going to be focused and concentrated back along the highway barrier here, as well as the seating and the lighting. And then this is a close-up just showing the plant material, the plant bed, the benches, the B12 light pole, and the restored S-rail barrier. And these are the materials we're going to be using. Only in front of Carl Schurz Park are we proposing to use the 1939 World's Fair bench, because Carl Schurz Park has all 1939 World's Fair benches. So we want to match that palette. Elsewhere, we'll be using the 1964 World's Fair bench, which is the precedent set and other approved segments of the Esplanade. We're going to be using asphalt block hex pavers where possible. There is the segment along Carl Schurz Park in front of Gracie Mansion where we can't afford to make it all asphalt hex block, so we're just doing the islands of asphalt hex block. If funding allows, we would like to do asphalt hex block everywhere, but we can't make that promise based on our funding.
What's the alternative?
What we're proposing as asphalt, just replace the asphalt.
Asphalt.
Yeah, replacement in that. And then the S-rail fence, which we are going to be restoring and or replacing in kind. And then getting to the highway barrier, we had originally proposed a 4-foot highway barrier. We sent some pushback from the PDC about the height, and we thought it might be more wiser to stick with a precedent that had already been set. So we had sent you pictures of a 40-inch highway barrier that exists currently of the same design along the between the FDR and the East River Esplanade, between 62nd and 64th Street. So we are going to use, instead of using a pilot or a prototype, we're going to use precedent. And that precedent has been set that it's a 42-inch barrier rail, concrete highway barrier, exactly like this, except it's only 40 inches high.
How does that correspond with the flood level that you were showing in the plans?
The base flood elevation
Like freeboard and,
is, the base flood elevation is, that's the 100-year flood
yeah.
plain. It's 13 feet.
So that just goes over this?
That would go. Yeah, and yeah.
So this is just a highway barrier?
Yeah, but it's, the height of it above the Esplanade would provide flood protection for those 40 inches, as long as it's continuous and encloses an area that would be completely enclosed. Otherwise, water would just come in from, but our objective and our goal had been some kind of flood mitigation or flood
So I just
protection.
wondering how it interfaces with flood control mitigation. I
Right.
guess. The plan.
And then just getting to the plant material, our primary objective in selecting plant material was selecting material that's salt tolerant and drought tolerant. In some segments of the Esplanade, we're not sure we're going to be able to have water service. I believe the portion between 80th and 90th, we will be able to connect water service from Carl Schurz Park. At 114th Street, it's unlikely we'll ever have water service there. So we have to stick with plant material that's very tough and drought tolerant, as well as salt tolerant. And so, we have a number of small tree species, the Japanese tree lilac, the sweet bay magnolia, the Emma Lankier, of course the eastern red cedar, Junipers virginia. And then we've seen some of the trees that do pretty well now, or that are salt tolerant and drought tolerant, are the shrubs have been shown to be very salt tolerant and very drought tolerant, and then some of the grasses, switchgrass, goldenrod, and New York aster. And that's it.
So, I had 2 questions. For the segment, the 114, 116, can you, or, wait a second, I must have written this down for Carl Schurz. Can you make a continuous soil trench for those smaller trees and not just put them in pits?
I believe so, yeah.
Carl
I
Schurz.
thi- Yeah,
Carl
I think
Schurz,
that's
yeah.
possible. I mean, we're putting pavers up, it would be soil with pavers on top of it.
Yes, yes.
Because there are also going to be benches there, we usually like to use bench pads or bench footings. We don't want to use a paving material that's going to get too worked. So we'd like to use the same paving material. We
also have to look out for interference with structural tiebacks.
Oh, that's right.
So
That's
we're
right.
tying back that wall into the
We
park.
have to-
So there's a little bit of interference we have to work around, but underneath it is intended to be all soil.
Yeah, I just think that, I mean, well, Eric knows this very well, but when we did the vision plan for the East River, I mean, you look at the condition of the trees there, and it's tragic. And some of it is from flooding, some of it that they were inappropriate species from the outset. And some of it is, I think, that they have a very constrained soil section. I know you don't want to put the soil up against the new bulkhead for, pressure reasons, but it seems that there are very few things that a pedestrian really gets to enjoy in this Esplanade, because it's incredibly loud. And so one's the view, and the other is a little shade. So I just urge you to do what you can to, first of all, bite the bullet on the trees that are like gonzo, right? Just please urge the forestry group to just kill those trees, especially.
Well, we're going to have to, in these 2 sections, just to do the reconstruction.
Right, okay, great.
Yeah.
Because they're just, because you showed existing trees in your plan.
For which segment? Because there
The
are
north.
Okay, the 114?
Yes.
Yeah, there are existing trees. Every tree that's right now currently within within 16 feet of the bulkhead will have to go, because this is all going to be relieving platform structure with no soil whatsoever. So those are all
Because
going to go.
I just urge you to take a critical
Yeah.
look at the existing trees.
Okay.
Because for the most part, they are really in very, very poor condition. And to do the best you can within the budget and engineering constraints to, give them a fighting longer chance.
We had a tree survey or a tree inventory done by Forestry of all of these more upland trees that are closer to the highway, and most of them were determined to be in acceptable condition, and we didn't have to remove them.
Yeah, but that's forestry. Come on, I have photographs of these trees, every single tree. The platinus are disastrous. And you know yourself in
I know.
forestry that every year now that they re-examine the platinus, they're doing worse.
They are not salt tolerant.
Exactly.
Yeah,
So, and they're declining.
yeah, and they're
So-
declining gradually.
Just
Okay.
push
We'll
back.
no doubt do another assessment
Yeah.
Yeah, right.
before we proceed with the contract, because we want to make sure that all the trees that are failing, that do present some kind of a structural or safety hazard, are removed. So, and forestry is pretty tough on trees. I mean, they don't just green light every tree. Trees, that's been my experience. They say, "Oh, I can get rid of that one." Some trees I think are wonderful, and they say, no, that's not all.
So, I think most importantly, what this project, 2 initiatives represent is, developing an overall strategy for the Esplanade, because it will inevitably have to be built in bits and pieces for a variety of reasons. So I think it's, I support the initiative to, beef up the buffer along the highway. I don't think we should give up on either noise barriers or flood barriers. And there are a variety of heights there now. I mean, what we're doing at Rockefeller is a lot higher than what you've got in the south.
Yeah.
I think it's still something we should look at. I mean, I've really wrestled with what we do about security and access and perception of safety and actual safety and all that stuff with these walls. But I think we have to keep testing.
Okay. Well, one of the proposals that we had originally, which we haven't presented here because we're not going to propose to do it now, is make sure the wall that we're building is structurally strong enough so that in the future we could bolt onto it a polycarbonate noise sound, or rather noise and flood barrier.
Right, right.
And these have been pioneered and piloted in other cities around the country and around the world. And we have pictures actually of, I think it's either England or Holland, where the water comes up to the flood barrier and it's like at the top of this polycarbonate transparent flood barrier. You can see where it's dry over here and the water's up to here. So that what we're proposing to do would not preclude sometime in the future adding a polycarbonate barrier.
Right.
That would then be, you could see through, so we would not have the safety issue
Right.
behind another
Right.
big sidewalk.
Right. Or keep raising the wall.
Yes.
Right.
Because no one's going to jump out of their car and help you.
Well, no, I just mean I went to a climate panel the other day, 2100 looks really dire.
It's coming fast, yeah, it's rising faster than we
Just to that point, because you show the flooded plan, but you don't refer to your sections. So that's what I was curious about. There's no acknowledgement of it.
Oh, you mean in the section showing where the flood elevation is?
Yeah, it would be nice to know how it's coming along there.
Well, that height
It's,
there's a
You
couple of
had
issues.
that big section of with the new piles, the new concrete
Yeah.
piles.
So a couple of issues with that. Number one, the Esplanade itself, we're designing to be what we call flood resilient. So it can flood and the water will go away, as opposed to putting a taller wall on the shore side.
Right,
There's no value in protecting it, just let it get flooded.
yeah.
Salt-tolerant plants, we will have a good chance, and the hardscape will survive. And a passive drainage system will do really well. The issue that we struggled with when we were scoping with this is what are we protecting by putting a flood barrier between us and the FDR? And I think there's a lot of work that the city as a whole is undertaking as part of the East Harlem resiliency study for what it is we want to protect and how to do it. So we didn't want to
No, I understand it's not part of your project, I just need to acknowledge that that world exists and that you are in it building something new and that you are assuming that what's there is going to get wet. It's okay.
yeah,
This is where the water's going to go, it's okay.
well,
Or there's some other money that's going to need to deal with this later, but
the edge of the Esplanade is approximately an elevation of 8, and the flood elevation is 13. So with let's say a 42-inch highway barrier, it's 3.5 feet, it would still be 1.5 feet above that barrier.
the 100-year flood.
The 100-year flood, yeah.
no ways.
And that 100-year flood, that base flood elevation in 25 years might be, 2 feet higher.
Right.
Other comments, questions?
Thank you. So we're back at the Parks Playground, and Matthew Nielsen is consulting landscape architects for us, and Molly Bourne is going to do the presentation, and Nick McGilton and Rita Kwan, Matthew Nielsen. Thank you.
Hi, good morning. I'm Molly Bourne, I'm a principal at Matthews Nielsen, Landscape Architects. We're going to take you through the Evergreen Playground project. I always get confused on how this works, so we're going to So the first thing to know is that Evergreen Playground is in Ridgewood, Queens. The project is a renovation of an existing playground. We met with the community, and what we heard loudly was that they wanted new site amenities. and also to really increase the play opportunities for the children. Plus have a flexible kind of community space that people could use. And the one thing about the site, you'll see in the photographs, it has really lovely set of existing trees that are very mature. It has a very high canopy. So we wanted to really kind of work with those trees. And the other thing we're gonna see is the fact that this playground is next to a school. So it services the school and the neighborhood. So we hope that the design serves both. So as I said, it's in Queens. It's called the Evergreen Playground because of the Evergreen Cemetery, which is close by. You can see here, what we have here is PS 68Q. And then what's surrounding it is pretty much a neighborhood of residential, single families. And then right here is a commercial rail line. That doesn't have a lot of presence on the site because that part of the site has a different grade change, but you'll see that in the photograph. So as you can see from the land use diagram, again, surrounded by residential, next to a school, as you can see here, it's kind of this triangular piece. This is the corridor that you see for the commercial train line. So when you look at the land use associated with it and its relationship to other parks, you can see that this park and playground services kind of a large neighborhood need and also the school's need. You can see here on the 10-minute walk, there's a few other playgrounds. And we got a lot of feedback from the community about which playgrounds they use and what they liked. So floodplain is very far away from our site, so we're in high ground, which is always good. This is what we use as the existing conditions. So again, this is somewhat of a triangular shaped site. Here's this PS 68Q. And you might remember that the first phase of the Evergreen Playground went through PDC and was completed in December of 2016. That's when the ribbon cutting was. So our project focuses on this half of the site. There's another large area, which is an asphalt multi-purpose space that the school uses for outdoor events and for outdoor recess. Also, the community uses it. We really heard in the community group meeting that they wanted to have more play and that the children were really aging out of the playground. So that really influenced our design. So you can see here, again, very large existing sycamore trees. There's an extensive tree review and arborist recommendations, and we actually found that there was about 4 trees that were not in great shape. And so those trees will be removed. That actually gives us an advantage and helps us open up the play space. You'll see that later. So as you can see, this looks like that 90s playground. A lot of the children have the classic, like, it's just so boring. And they end up sitting on it and hanging out as opposed to playing on it. So there's a lot of different types of seating and edging. One of our goals was to create a more cohesive playground with the phase 1 and kind of have it feel like it's all one park. So again, you can see there's these 2 playground areas. The second playground area has the same similar playground equipment of the same era. You can see there's small walls here that kind of retain some grade. The tree, again, existing trees create the spaces. There's what we call 2 different pieces of the playground. And then this is the new phase 1. This was under construction. This is much farther along. The phase 1 had, it's for 2 to 5-year-olds, and it had a large spray shower associated with the comfort station. This is the multi-flexible use asphalt field, and you can see this train and these kind of bleacher seats back. There's the train line here. So that kind of sets a hard edge against that train line, and the train line doesn't have much presence on the playground. Here is the phase 1 entrance and kind of the relationship of what we look at as the node to the phase one. This is when the project was under construction, so the materials are quite different now. So these photographs are a little old. Again, there's a lot of mix of materials, and some of them are doing not so well, some of them are doing okay. You'll see with the palette that we're deciding on is trying to create a more cohesive palette and simplify the palette. So here we go. So here's St. Felix Avenue is where you enter. This is where most people enter, and it's also used as a service drive. The school enters the playground from here. The public comes through these two entrances. There's also a little bit of a parking area, and people also enter through here. So again, this is phase one. This is the multi-purpose asphalt area, and then these are our new playground interventions. And so we look at this as playground area 1 and playground area 2. When, as you can maybe remember from the existing conditions, they had the same feel. And so again, we're trying to provide a diversity of kind of interaction with play, and also try to carve out a little passive space. So as you can see, there's a little bit of grade change that we're maintaining. You can see where these brown lines are. And then there's perimeter fencing along this edge. A lot of this edge, again, has that higher wall. So let's see the next one. So this is the result of the tree inventory. Again, most of the trees are doing pretty well, but we're going to lose 4 trees here and here. And the thing that is wonderful, even though we're tree lovers, is that it opens up the space and gives us a little more room in this area of the playground. So what happens is the canopy creates basically 2 rooms, and we wanted to respect that, but also provide different feelings to these rooms. So you can see here, this is a diagram of how it's used. We always looked at the site as a whole, even though we only were looking at renovating one piece, so that we would make sure that we get the circulation correct. So again, the circulation comes here. Most of the children that are at the school, and they come through this way. Also, this is kind of a neighborhood route, and these are auxiliary, so then we have this 2 to 5 playground, and then 5 to 12 playground. This is the materiality, the existing materiality. So what you have is quite a bit of asphalt, and so in the new phase 1, again, quite a bit of asphalt with low planters. Our existing is also asphalt with a mix of some brick, but all of that has been, we're again trying to solidify and simplify the palette. So this is the design as it is right now, preliminary. We have, again, what we've tried to do is, what we heard was they really wanted swings. So the first phase has some swings, but what we did was a large concentration of swings, and then, again, created a little small passive seating area, because there's also elderly in the neighborhood, and so that sometimes more places where parents could hang out and wait for their kids. So then this one has a feel that it's kind of like swing central, whereas this one is much more active and focused on play equipment, and it's the equipment is, we looked at it to be very transparent, and also the color and the feel of it matches the phase 1. And so you can see how it's ringed by the planting area. One of our goals was to increase the planting beds and have a greener feel, and to really work with and play up the planting that we have, and to work with the existing trees. So now we flipped around and we're enlarged. So again, here's swing central. Then you have and again, it's tricky when you're working with existing trees and kind of this established canopy to insert new trees and new plant materials. So a lot of these plant materials shade tolerant, and also the trees tend to be understory trees and flowering. So you'll see here we have bigger planting beds, and those have flowering trees. Again, the materiality, this pink that you're seeing is safety surface, and you can see that color right here. This is this gray safety surface. And then we have a few more canopy trees that we're putting in, and then we're using some of the existing fencing, you'll see in the next diagram, and then we're adding some new fencing. So this is, it's always important when you're designing playgrounds to make sure that you understand the circuit and how that the circulation doesn't create places where children can collide into each other, so that they can have kind of the free experience of enjoying the playground and not worrying about any type of circulation problem. So we studied that quite a bit, and also in relationship to the new phase 1. Another important thing for us was visibility. So when the previous playground was designed, there was big chunks of playground equipment that kind of sometimes got into the way to block the view. So we wanted a clear sight line from Felix Street all the way through to the back of that back wall. So we took that into consideration. That's one of the reasons why those swings work so well, because again, they don't have a lot of mass to them. And so you can see all the way through that first room, all the way to the back. And so we're looking to make sure that we keep that open. You can see that in the design. Again, also important to open up and increase the planting area, but control the circulation. You can see that we're using a lot of the existing fencing. Here there's a 12-foot fence, there's an existing 4-foot fence, an existing 4-foot fence, and then on the interior we have 2.5-foot fences. These are these low walls that are going to be remaining. So the grading on this is very minimal, again due to preserving the trees. So you can see where we're doing slight interventions here and here. One thing that I didn't mention that is important is that we are taking some of the paved area and using permeable pavers, that are right here, that are adjacent to those existing trees. So we're also, by increasing the amount of permeable area, we're kind of, you can see the difference between how much impermeable versus permeable in the existing and proposed. And again, introducing flowering trees. We have such great canopy trees. We wanted to introduce another layer of flowering and seasonal interest, plus using very reliable canopy trees like Tilia. The understory, we worked carefully with parks to make sure that everything is low maintenance and can also be have more seasonal interest. So I think that we've come up with a great palette that does both of those things. This is the playground equipment in the larger space here. So you can see, again, it's a little lighter. We are happy that Parks Department is pushing through to use the more current and kind of more contemporary playground equipment. The other thing is that we wanted to make sure that we are in the same color family as the first phase. So you can see these two colors, they're in the green. So it's a very simple palette and it matches the first phase. And so this is a view looking the other way. Again, you can see there's a circuit where people can play in groups or alone, but that it's also, we really tried to push, since it was 5 to 12-year-olds, and we got quite a bit of feedback that the kids were a little bored, that it has a lot of upper body strength, and that some of the pieces are quite challenging. Another aspect of the selection for the playground equipment was that we tried to really improve accessibility, and so there's a lot of companion play and universally accessible pieces. Of course, we are working with the Parks Department palette with all the benches, the new benches that kind of ring the spaces will be the World's Fair with the RPL slats. We're also excited about the fact that we get to use the bottle filling station with the drinking fountain because it seems like that everyone's going that way. The lights are the Riverside. Those lights are the ones that are existing, so we're trying to complement what's existing. And then again, the fencing is very standard Parks Department steel fence. But again, trying to bring that down to the planted area so it's only a 2'6" fence. So it doesn't feel as closed in. So the interior of the rooms feel much roomier, I'd say.
But one of your fences is 12 feet. whereas
It is.
Our Parks Commissioner was talking about how all fences should be lower than.
And that's a great question, because the thing that happens here is the reason why this is a 12-foot fence, it has to do with its relationship to this edge of the school. So this is farther into the site, and there's a parking area that sometimes is used after hours in the school. So this is the highest fence in the kind of this new renovation. But then it goes back to a 12-foot fence here along that edge for that multi-purpose space. So I don't know, Nancy, if you could speak to that, but we do think it's.
that 12-foot fence?
We looked at lowering the fences where we could, but because of existing retaining walls and site conditions, that's why we didn't focus on the exterior of the site.
Yeah.
I mean, just bringing it up because your commissioner was, could not have been more emphatic
Yes.
about how much he hates all fences, and particularly 12-foot fences. So it seems slightly incongruous just a few hours later to see.
And obviously it hit the field, but it,
So let's make sure we right, and let's make sure.
The perimeter fence. on the
Right, so it
sidewalk
acts like
below
the
fence.
perimeter fence on this edge. But, you know, we're really excited that he hates fences. As a
No,
landscape architect.
If we haven't looked at lowering that fence, I thought Noah pushed back on that, right? Am I correct? Because we could cut down the chain link fence for spending money.
We could always
cut
cut that,
down the
right.
existing chain link fence.
See,
No,
here,
no, it's all.
here it is, right there. That's the fence we're talking about. And see that parking area right there?
yeah, that's what
Yeah, but
We are, you know, I didn't talk about the reality of the budget, did I?
it's not the most important thing, but it is important, and it seemed important, and I wanted you to
No.
understand that I was listening carefully,
I'd
even if you weren't.
like to agree to do something if that's possible. We might put in lowering that fence as an alternate. So I know they're really tight on the budget.
But a lower fence might be cheaper than that.
No,
That's
keep
That's
the
the existing fence.
It's existing.
Oh,
They weren't
So it would be cutting down the
I
fence,
understand.
putting new
Okay.
fabric
Okay.
on,
Understood.
repainting.
Got it. Okay.
That
It's
might
not a
be
big
a
item.
great add alternate, right? Because then it would hit that
Yeah,
Where?
alternate's
to
already.
match the.
No?
No.
Okay, good.
We still have
But
time
there's
for add
also a
alternates.
fence on the other side,
There is.
you get like two,
Let's go look at
that's
this.
there.
Let me go to the diagram,
You have
fence
a,
diagram.
you have a fence on Felix, I couldn't tell how high it was.
That's 4-foot fence, I
4-foot
think,
fence.
and there is a grade change there. so.
Right along your, whoa, there, stop, the back one, that was good, when you went back, go back one.
Okay,
Right there on the way up on the upper right, how high is that fence? Because, this right section,
yes.
right way over your thing works.
Right
That's
there.
4 feet.
This is a 4-foot
That's
fence.
4 foot, oh,
Yeah.
those are short people.
They are short people.
Yeah.
Oh, you know what, it's a 4-foot fence
On
on
the
a
But it
grade.
has, it also has a grade
Oh.
change.
Yeah.
I
We
see,
should have a
They're not
photo.
that short.
because that's also too.
It's 4-foot fence on the wall.
Yes, is that he's
Exactly.
trying to keep these low.
Yeah,
either.
so he is,
Yeah.
he's trying to
You
keep
can
it low.
look over, I couldn't tell people to look over that.
The places where we can't do that is when there's a grade change. When we have to have 42 inches, we want 42 inches to keep people from
Okay.
pushing it.
This is the fence that you're speaking of right here. That
Right.
So yeah, it's on the wall.
Yeah,
So it's
that's
on that wall, and again, we're
The other
trying
side
to,
is
But on the
grade change,
inside.
where you're, I get it.
so the playground is a little higher right there.
Right, got it.
And so that was one of the other things, I didn't really talk about the reality of the budget and the fact that we're really trying to preserve many of the existing walls on the edges, so we meet the budget.
Yeah.
Okay.
We understand.
Yeah.
And do you, this surface, I was just thinking about the summer when it's hot. What's your
So-
experience with dark gray?
So we've tested all our safety surface with a heat monitor to
Right.
see. And there's surprisingly not that much difference between the colors. But psychologically, and people think there is. So we try and stay away from black. But black is the least expensive for us. So sometimes we do that if there's a lot of shade. There's a lot of shade in
There's
this
a lot of shade.
area. And the gray is, yes, it's cooler. The gray and the beige.
I just, that's not.
It's the cooler of our choices.
In the middle, there you go.
Yeah, but it's not the big difference that people think it can be. Rubber is rubber, but black definitely. It would be too big an area to have all black.
Is it just harder to clean as well, or is that an issue in terms of staining, like the lighter?
The lighter colors do get, they get stained and they discolor. When we do really light colors, I think sometimes we have modeling. This gray will not look terrible after Yes, yes. We don't power, we don't have them in the power wash anything, so.
It's a forgiving grade.
It is, that's.
No, I know that.
Right, it's forgiving, and it also kind of.
We like that, right?
And so we also like the fact that when the asphalt will oxidize, that it'll feel again like one large space. But it is, if I didn't, these larger circles, that is the extent of the drip line for the existing trees. We did quite a bit of sun and shade studies to make sure that we were selecting the right plant material as well.
Okay, great.
Okay, good. Nice.
Any other questions? All right, thank you very much.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks.
Yes. The public meeting is now commencing with the consent agenda. We're going to be reviewing items, voting on items 26008 to 26029. Please note the conditions of approval as recommended by the various committees and the recusals, and also the comment that we had this morning on Atlantic City. The staff has noted my recusal from item 26019. Are there any others that are not noted? No, for the record, no members of the public, that there are no further recusals. And for the record, no members of the public have signed up to testify on any of the consent items. And there is actually no member of the public in the room. Will someone make a motion to approve the consent agenda?
So moved.
A second. Thank you. All in favor, please raise your right hand. It is unanimously approved. Thank you very much. Meeting adjourned.